You take the short, take the thicker end, put it over.
Yeah, over. That's it. Bring it under and around.
Bring it, yeah.
I think I got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I look a lot.
One Glink.
All right.
And then
Perfect. Thank you,
if
guys.
people,
Today, guys, we're going to be teaching a lesson on how to make a successful YouTube channel. First step is don't do anything I'm doing because I'm not even running a successful one. But
Oh, okay.
I know what it takes to do it. All right. So the first thing you need to run a successful YouTube channel is you need basic equipment. Okay. You need a microphone like this. You need a camera. I have this really fancy.
Yep.
I have this fancy DSLR, Sony AX-R2. Someone got this for me. It's really expensive, but you don't need that. You could just use a phone camera, actually. Plenty of people do that. But what matters the most above all else, does anyone have a guess as to what matters the most? What your success of a channel hinges on more than anything else? Anybody in class have the answer? Okay, Blazin, go ahead.
Effort. Lots of effort.
Effort. That's important. It's important, but I wouldn't say that's not the answer I'm looking for. Who else do we? Guy in the bottom left. I don't see your guys' names, honestly.
Phil and Retro here. Content.
Content is king.
Let's go, lads.
Don't have to show me up like that.
There we go, boys.
Content.
There it is.
Content. Somebody said it. Somebody said content is king. The thing is, you can have the best video idea ever. You can have all the effort, all the production value, the most expensive camera. But if you don't have like the topic, the content, it has to be entertaining. It has to be entertaining, and it has to be something that people want to watch. And that nothing else matters if that's not the first thing. Okay, so the first thing is content. Now, how do you get to good content? Well, you have to start with a good topic. And a good topic, what do you guys think of as
Drama.
Okay, Blazin says drama. That's one thing. Does anyone else have any other ideas what a good topic consists of?
Relevant.
Controversy.
Okay, those are decent ideas. A good topic can be anything, but what's more important than the topic is an audience. Because if you have good content, all you need is an audience, and the topic is just a medium to get there. You can make good content on, dancing, and if there's an audience for it, it can do well. So you need to have an audience. It has to be a topic that has an audience. You said drama. Drama does well, Blazin, because drama tends to involve people or figures that are already commonly known. This is why the commentary community on YouTube, for example, that's why they do well, because they're talking about people that you already know about. The audience is already established. So second thing is audience. Right there. So audience is important. Now, once you have a topic in mind, let's say my topic right now, this video I'm working on it's about Zoom and how it affects remote learning and its impact on education, on students, that type of thing. But the audience is potentially anyone who's in Zoom classes, anyone who's learning anything remotely basically right now. So it's a big potential audience. But then there's another problem here. Does anyone know what the problem is when I have a wide audience and maybe even an interesting or a good topic? What is the problem there?
Saturated market, like there's too many people doing it.
That's correct. You have the problem of too much competition, basically. It's like everyone knows who Ninja is. He's got a bit, or whatever. I don't even know. Nobody watches Ninja anymore. Who do they watch?
PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Minus.
Under disrespect.
You know, everyone knows who Dr. Disrespect is, but if you make another video on Dr. Disrespect, there's about 500 million other videos on it. So audience is saturation. I like that word.
You have to be the first.
So that's one solution around this problem, because this is the problem here is saturation. But how do you solve that problem? Okay, so one, that's a good point, is first. You could be. You guys can't even read this, can you? It's all like all inverted. And
No.
shit. You could be the first to a topic, or to cover something about a topic that already has an audience. You could be the first. That's pretty difficult though, because you have to compete with all the news. The first channels that get to a topic are typically news. People that just report. They won't even have a spin on it. People like Keemstar, Scarce, whatever, whoever else does news channels, they'll typically cover they don't cover every topic, of course, but they'll cover topics relating to YouTubers, relating to drama, that kind of thing, relating to people in the online sphere. And so that's the first line of content, is the news. And news you could be a news channel. There are people who start news. That's something you could do. But granted, news is it's very competitive, because you have to compete with the other people reporting on it. And you also have to be very timely, very organized, very on top of things. And it leaves the least amount of room for being creative and original and having your own personality. That's not completely true. You can insert your personality into reporting on facts and events, of course, but it's just, that's one way to do it. Okay. I would argue that it's pretty competitive though. It's pretty difficult. The other way is that you could do something that's a little bit more, kind of like an editorial, which is kind of like what I do actually with certain, like this topic is basically editorial, where instead of just reporting on the news, you're, giving a detailed, basically either it's a description or it's an opinion or it's a call to action, whatever it is, you're giving a more detailed, nuanced kind of look into something. And that would be a editorial, I would call it. Editorial. So if we're using the kind of conventional press here as a analogy, then there's some columns that are just reporting on the facts. Some are editorials. That's kind of level 1 and level 2 when it comes to picking a topic, having an audience, and then making the content about it. Now, there's more ways than that. Does anyone here know, in terms of topics, what are the other ways that you can package information in a way that will garner an audience? Comedy. That's one. Anyone else?
Boobs.
Sure. Yes, sex does sell. That's true. Okay, so the factor here though is entertainment. That's what we're getting at here is entertainment value. I don't even know why I'm writing this, but whatever. It's not like you guys can read it anyways. Entertainment value though, that is the key here. Entertainment value means you can be comedic. You could have sex appeal. You could have cool visual edits, I guess. You can have audio, whatever it is, something that just keeps people interested. That keeps them coming back. It keeps them makes your content memorable, because you can write the best editorialized report on something. You can give your best opinion that's super well researched and all that. But if it's just boring, why would anyone watch it? There's no point. You might as well just compete in print. You might as well just write articles or whatever, write essays. But for video, the whole point is to be entertaining. So it's either got to be very entertaining or very informative in a way that only videos can be. For example, how to tie a tie. It's useful to be in a video format because the visuals matter. Cooking videos are a great example of this, where the visual element is key. It's not just the content in that case is what you're filming. But so there's two kinds of content. There's content that is based on the subject, and there's content that is based on the objectivity. So like writing about a topic is more objective generally because it's not about what you're filming, it's about what you're talking about. You guys see the difference there?
Yeah.
Okay. So once you've decided on which one of these things you want to do, the next step is how do you stand out in a crowd? Because no matter what you do, someone's already doing something similar. How do you stand out? The first step is there's a few ways you can go about this. Let me list what they are. Okay, so the first one, how you stand out is quality. And quality can relate to any of the other things I mentioned. It can be the fact that it's very entertaining. It can be the fact that it's extremely well made, well organized, interesting information, whatever. But above all else, quality means that you're putting an effort. That's what Blazin was saying earlier, but you are putting an effort. That's required for anything to be good, basically. That's not always true. I mean, you probably have seen channels that do very low effort and get very high views, but generally speaking, that's the result of one of two things. Either they have an already established audience, which they can get away with that because people are watching for their personality or for the universe they've built with their content. So it doesn't matter what effort they put in as much as long as they're being themselves. So that's the personality driven route. And the other route is where the subject is so interesting that it doesn't require any effort. So if you're filming a big violent protest, for example, and it goes viral, like that's what viral content often is. That's just randomly viral, is because it's not because the person filming with their phone put in a lot of effort or that the framing is amazing or that the artistic direction is there. It's because whatever they're filming is just instantly, it's the content. That is the content right there. The content makes itself, they just happen to be filming. So that's what I mean by subject versus object. I don't even know if that's the best way to frame it, but I think you get the idea. Does anyone have any questions so far? No. Okay. So the quality, that's the first way to control for whether or not you're successful. Second thing is you need some level of originality. Now, when I say that, you might think that I'm trying to say you have to make something just nobody's seen before, nobody's heard before. It's groundbreaking information or whatever. That's not true. Originality can be something as simple as you combine two things that people don't typically think to combine. For example, you can relate two subjects that have a lot of things in common and yet aren't immediately talked about. And there's so many examples of this. Like I did this with the Zelda. I made a video called how Breath of the Wild, or how Nintendo gets female representation right. And I used Breath of the Wild as an example of a game that's doing that, because in the game there's like these different NPCs and there's like these, it's basically, they have a lot of female representation in the game, but it's not done in like this annoying over the top political way where it's just bashing you on the head with their political message, right? Well, in that case, I'm taking a topic, which is kind of the idea of female representation or feminism or whatever, and I'm relating it to something else that everyone knows, which is Zelda, Nintendo, games. So it's not that original, and I didn't come up with any of those things. They're not super obscure things. They're very mainstream topics, but I just, combined them in a way that makes sense. It's like, okay, this is a tie-in with that. Does that make sense? It's linking together different ideas. That's a big skill, I think, involved with being original, is linking together different ideas. So like right here, as you can see, that looks like a swastika. That's not the intention. The point is you're trying to pull different ideas from different places. Now, some people are better at that than others. What I've found is, at least in my experience, is that the better you are at doing that, the worse, or the other skill is like how organized are you? Because you can have a lot of good ideas of how things relate and not, but if you're not able to organize it in a cohesive package in a way that makes like sense to people, if it only makes sense to you, then it's not very useful, obviously. You have to be able to present that in a way that is useful, is informative to a wide audience. So one thing you always want to keep in mind is no matter what you're doing, the key is audience, audience, audience. Who is going to watch this? Okay. If it makes sense to you and it's a great video and it's super well made and it's original, if you don't have an audience, it doesn't matter. So this is where things sometimes get watered down with videos where and it's a problem sometimes where very complicated topics, whether it's politics or it's philosophy, whatever it is, very complicated ideas tend to get watered down because you're trying to appeal to as many people as possible. It's the same thing with music, where the most popular music is often the most catchy, the most accessible, because that's just instantly, you get it. You instantly get it. But in the same way that there could be good pop music too, it doesn't have to be a compromise where you either make something important or something completely nonsensical. The latest drama on James Charles, whatever, grooming a 12-year-old or whatever he did this last week. I just made that up. But the point is, those kinds of topics are pretty much meaningless, but they're easily accessible. So that's one end of the spectrum here. And I need better visuals, but there's a spectrum. Give me 1 second to just erase this, and then I'll show you guys the visual of the spectrum here. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you think I'm just completely making this up as I go, but I hope.
Do you think that content will last, or do you think that it's like up music, if you know what I mean? They're famous for like a week, and then they'll just be completely forgotten. But the ones who put in real effort and are creative will last longer.
That's a very good good point to bring up.
That's what I would think anyway. Like, I do see a lot of these gameplay channels that have got like thousands of subscribers, and they're just playing Call of Duty and just talking about James Charles on this and blah blah blah, and it's just very like, are they getting viewers? But at the end of the day, like, they have no replay value in their videos. You watch it once and you just, that's it. Yeah.
Right. That's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So let me, I'll address that in a moment here. So let me make this little spectrum here of what I'm talking about, because this is a really key point for any kind of content you want to make. So on one end, we have, let's say, drama. Let's say film. Okay, so right here. It's fucking inverted. But the point is, on one side, you have this kind of, this is like what I mean by the James Charles, his name is just a placeholder here, but whatever is the hot drama of the day, whatever is the tea, whatever is what everyone's talking about in whatever bubble it is. It could be, for everyone, it's going to be different, but maybe for gamers type people, it's going to be a certain type of thing. And then for, I don't know, other kinds of channels, it'll be something different. But that's like the instantly accessible, the hot news of the day, the thing that the little water cooler talk, as they say. And then on the other end of that spectrum, you have like the most thought-provoking film you've ever seen, where it was like the cinematic masterpiece and you're like blown away by it. It changed your life. That's on the other extreme end right here. You can find a happy medium somewhere in between here, maybe even more towards the drama part. But you'll notice that some channels, they incorporate a little bit more editing, a little bit more filmmaking, a little bit more artistic stuff, even if they're talking about drama. I'm thinking about, again, the commentary community here is a good example. People like, maybe you might have heard of The Right Opinion, or who else? Like, I guess to some extent, people like people who make videos on other YouTubers are a great category for, they kind of fall somewhere in here where they're like sort of putting in effort. It's sort of original. They'll maybe do a big rise and fall video. Those are popular right now. So rise and fall videos would fall right somewhere in here. And that's because they are talking about someone that's like, you know, I'm trying to think of the names. Jake Paul. Okay. Like not the best example because it's so oversaturated, but Jake Paul is like, okay, this is a hot button person and we're going to make a video, but it's not just going to be, hey, Jake Paul did this. It's going to be like Jake Paul went through, it's a character analysis. It's looking at his psyche. It's looking how he got there. It's an in-depth look at something that is pretty surface level generally. Okay. So, but this whole thing was about originality. So let me write that at the top here. And now, sorry, I don't see your guys' names. Who is the guy who said, how long will it last based on how, what's your name?
Villain Retro.
Oh yeah. Villain Retro. Okay. Sorry. I didn't see. I thought you were going to be wearing a punk outfit because that's like what your avatar looks like.
No, I've got the denim jacket. Got the denim jacket.
Okay. So yeah. So originality. So the, as you correctly pointed out, there is a problem with this kind of, going further along on this side of the spectrum where it's more drama, surface level, accessible stuff. And that problem is you are, it's a problem.
Like dating your own content.
Well, sort of. It's I kind of view it more as like an automation thing. I don't know if that's useful to view it that way, but in the sense that think about like jobs that are replaceable. You know, bagging groceries is probably not a good thing to invest your career in. Maybe it's good to try, but it's not something you should invest your career in because at some point it's just going to be self-automated, right? In other words, you're replaceable. And so the same thing applies with any kind of content. And even if it's not an AI or computer that replaces you, it's other people. So as great as, you know, your favorite drama channel might be, in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, if that person stops uploading or they're not consistent or people just lost interest for whatever reason, there's a million other people who can do the same thing. Why? Because drama requires the least amount of originality. Because anyone can do it. You can, right? Any one of you right here, if you just researched, I don't know, whoever the 12-year-old girls are watching right now and who is in some sort of controversy, guarantee you could make a video and you could probably get views. There's nothing that's guaranteed, but it's you know, that would be like a good way to get some views if you wanted to. So that's one thing, is that it's replaceable. It's just a replaceable medium. But of course, like I said, the flip side, it's also accessible. So replaceable and accessible. Now, on the other side of things, when I was talking about that very profound film that is going to be life-changing, thought-provoking, all those awesome things, the problem with that is it's not accessible. Why? Does anyone know why a great film, even the just most thought-provoking, amazing, well-made thing, why is that? And let's say it's, I'm going to give it away if I say that, but what are generally the obstacles for keeping that from being accessible? Does anyone know?
Appeal. Sometimes it's too
Accessibility.
niche.
But what's keeping it from being appealing? What's keeping it from being accessible?
You say it like it makes people think too much and people just want to like veg out.
There's something.
You have to be in the right state of mind for it.
Complexity.
You guys are thinking too complex here. It's actually something way simpler. It's time. It's the fact that in order to convey time and attention span. So in order to convey something that's really profound, generally it takes a lot of time. It takes time and kind of effort too, thinking. But it's not that people want to veg out, as you say. That's not the main problem. I don't think. I think it's just the problem of if it's like, hey man, there's this really amazing film. It's 2 hours long. Even if it's so great, you're going to be a little bit reluctant to sink. Most people will be reluctant to sink 2 hours into it and set that time aside. But if there's a 5-minute video, 10-minute video on something that's just very instantly consumable and entertaining, you're going to prefer that generally. It's less committal. So the one problem is time, although there's solutions for that, especially with YouTube, but let's just put that for now. Time is one issue. And the other problem is, there's also a problem of it's just hard to boil certain things down. Some things can be related to a very large audience, but some things, there's just no getting around it. You need to provide a lot of explanation. You need to provide a lot of context for people to understand something. So that's another problem with things that are very profound or impactful on people's lives. Now, the advantages of this kind of thing, of this film structure, let's say, is that it is more original. If you make something that's truly your own creation on a topic, whatever the topic is, and you really put in all this effort and it is extremely high quality and all that, you are being way more original than this guy doing the drama thing, than this guy just talking to the camera about the latest news. And you are far less replaceable. You are not replaceable if you do that. Now, of course, the challenge here is this is harder to find an audience and this is easier to find an audience. So to bridge that gap, to bridge this gap, you need to probably start somewhere along this part of the spectrum and make content that falls not on one extreme or the other, but somewhere in between both. And you can basically take the best parts of both and apply them. And so again, that's where connecting ideas becomes useful, where you can take a person that's extremely well-known, very accessible on the drama side, and yet provide a video even, like this is what a good documentary does. You could make a video that is an original take on them and falls really more into the film side. So you're completely bridging that gap. This is kind of what I think Shane Dawson touched on when he was doing that Jake Paul documentary, where he did, I don't know if you guys are aware, but he did like Into the Mind of a Sociopath or whatever he did on Jake Paul. And I think the reason that was really popular was because everyone at the time was kind of obsessed with that topic, or a lot of people were, and yet he was providing content that wasn't just, the lowest common denominator. He was trying to provide this sort of high quality, high production documentary where he sat down and talked with him and all that. Granted, I think that was totally unnecessary and long-winded and stupid anyways. But the point is he was appealing to that kind of style. So I was going to say something else about originality. Does anyone have any questions or any things to add here before I figure out what the next thing is?
Is it too early to ask about how this factors in with like the YouTube algorithm?
Oh, okay. Algorithm. That is a good point to bring up here. The algorithm is really just it's just machine learning trying to make sense of all this. It's literally just different patterns of what the algorithm tries to find an audience. That's what it is. It tries to find an audience, and it also does it based on these factors. That's what watch time, interactions, I guess to some extent likes, although those don't matter anymore. The point is the metrics of how a video performs informs the algorithm of what kind of video it is. And so if you're someone who watches the news content, you're going to be recommended more of that. If you're someone who likes the more long form video essay stuff or whatever, then you're going to be recommended more of that. And the way that the algorithm knows to recommend that to you, or which ones to recommend to you, is based on how they perform. And how they perform is usually based on the content or the quality of the content. So for example, if something has higher audience retention and it's on a topic that you have shown interest in before based on your watch history, it's going to recommend that to you. But of course, the problem there is if you make something that's great and it even has high audience retention, but you don't have finding an audience is the first step. Because if you don't have an audience, where's the algorithm going to recommend your video to? No one. I can make the best video ever on, I don't even know, some super obscure topic, but it's just not going to do well if it doesn't have an audience. Now, there is a kind of X factor there, which is there are videos and there are topics which can establish an audience where, of course, nothing is completely original, but you can make videos that will naturally start a trend. And that's really hard to do, but it can be done. And I'm sure you could think of examples that have done this, where there's a video in your recommended, which you've never heard of before. You haven't even thought about the topic, right? Or you have no idea what it is. But that hinges on one more important thing. So in order for an X Factor video to do well, does anyone know what you need? You need
Outside advertisement, like a
Close.
new announcement.
marketing. You need marketing, good marketing. For you to click on the video that is a topic which you've never heard of before, and yet it's fascinating to you, whether or not you're interested hinges completely on the marketing, on the title, the thumbnail. Well, for YouTube's purposes, the title and thumbnail, but applying to anything else outside of YouTube, it's just marketing in general. What is the selling point of it? And if you have a good enough selling point, this really is the key. If you have good enough selling point, you can make any topic successful. You can be as original as you want if you're really good at marketing. But marketing is really hard to be good at because it essentially requires you to boil down ideas in a way that is instantly catchy, even more than like a pop song or anything like that. Because a pop song is something you listen to. You know, you're able to listen to it for, I don't know, a couple minutes, right? But marketing is like you have 2 words. You have a few words. You have a tiny, in YouTube's case, you have a tiny thumbnail and you have a title. And those words in the title and what is shown in the thumbnail are crucial. That's all you have for marketing. Whereas a song is like, okay, well, if you have a catchy chorus, that's marketable, right? So I don't know if that's the best example, but you get the point that I'm trying to say. Like movie posters for theaters are another example, although they're not competing with billions of other videos. They're competing with the small amount of films that are also in that theater, which is generally not too many. So they don't have as many. But even film marketing is very difficult. It's just not as difficult as YouTube because there's less competition. So marketing. If you're good at marketing, being good at YouTube is essentially being good at marketing. That's what it is. Well, that's what it is if you're doing marketing, because the marketing will take care of itself the less original you are. That's the other advantage of when I showed you the spectrum. The other advantage of the drama stuff is you don't really have to worry about marketing as much. It's of course going to help you, but people don't really care. What, like Drama Alert, perfect example. Once again, their thumbnails are the most simple, basic. It's literally just the people he's talking about with a red or yellow background. That's it. That's why the channels that have the most simplistic, like clickbaity thumbnails, quote unquote, that's like the lowest common denominator for marketing. It's like, yes, it is. It gets the point across very clearly, but the drawback of getting that point across is that it seems very surface level. And if you have an audience that cares about those surface level things, that's fine. But if you're trying to break into an audience, again, it comes back to the whole originality versus replaceability thing, where like right now I could make a thumbnail with, I don't know, again, like James Charles or something, like whatever face. And I could try really hard to appeal to that kind of audience. But the problem is now I'm basically doing the same thing everyone else is doing. And because of that, the marketing is not helping me. It's just, you can watch that video anywhere. That's the impression people get. But if you do good marketing on something people haven't heard of, it's like, this is interesting. It's eye-catching. I get it. I get what you're trying to convey, and I don't see it anywhere else. That's a good combo. That's an unbeatable combo. I think someone who does this well is maybe, I might say M. Lemon. If you guys are familiar, that he does video essays. M. Lemon might be good. I don't know if you guys have. Do you guys know what I'm getting at here though? Where it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think another example. I feel like have you ever heard of Nerd City?
yes, I know him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do fantastic like analytical just videos or like just general video skits, and it's so cohesive, and it's mixing with skits, seriousness, etc., and it kind of forms even a video essay where you just learn tons and you don't even realize you're learning anything.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, Nerd City, he does this really well, where he'll take a topic and he does even something different. I mean, I could go on even more, but there's even more types where I would call it so another way to be original, other than just presenting something or researching something or writing in a very interesting way, there's almost a shortcut to being original. And I'm glad you brought up Nerd City because he kind of encapsulates this. So I think this is almost like a future of YouTube, or it's certainly a growing genre. So there's two ways, maybe more, but there's two ways I can think of which create really original content, can have an audience very easily, and are accessible. Do you guys know what these shortcuts to extremely original, accessible content are?
Feel like a gimmick?
Sort of, but
Characters.
sort of. It could be a gimmick. It's these types of content. Just read English backwards and you'll see what I'm saying. Investigative and experimental, meaning, so what Nerd City did, I mean, I know his videos are different, but like one of his most popular ones is where he's basically trying to start an Instagram trend, basically. He's trying to like see how you can use viral marketing on Instagram. And in order to do that, he basically set up an experiment and actually did that. He actually, for whatever it was, a month or a few months, tried his hardest with this experiment he was doing to make a viral Instagram account. And I think he was successful. So that's like an experiment where you're trying something. There's so many videos. This can be complicated or simple, where it's like Mr. Beast kind of started out this way. Oh, I'm saying PewDiePie for 10 hours straight. Okay, like it sounds stupid, but it is kind of interesting because you're actually doing something. Like you're doing something and you're documenting it. So I would call that experimental. So it can be really simple, or it can be really high. It could be super complicated. And the more high concept it is, and especially if you pull it off, the more impressive the video just makes itself. It's an original, amazing video. I'm trying to think of more examples of this, but like Veritasium, maybe he's done that, where it's like, what would happen, or like whatever. It's like, what would happen if you fill a bathtub full of, Zorbies or whatever, like things like that, where you're doing an experiment and then the audience wants to find out what's going to happen, right? The hot knife videos were popular for this exact reason. And again, there's ways to do this in a really stupid, in my opinion, like lowest common denominator way, where you're appealing to basically children. Like, what would happen if we pour Mentos into, like yogurt or something? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of, the point is, you know what I mean? So that's experimental. And then investigative is kind of what I try to do more of myself, which is kind of, it's like investigative journalism, but it doesn't necessarily have to be journalism. It's just looking in, it's kind of like doing research, but the elements, the more originality you add to that, the better. So for example, with me, I don't just do research. I try to also incorporate interviews and stories from people, because those are compelling. Those are unique. Those are irreplaceable. That's going to be, if I interviewed someone and we have a conversation, you can't replicate that with any amount of research. And it's also just, it's more of a human connection. It's like I'm hearing someone talk rather than just, a document. So investigative. And there's other forms of investigative stuff. There's like, again, documentaries are like the extreme of this, where you really delve deep into something. You really discover new things for yourself. Going on location is great for this kind of video, where it's like, oh, there's this abandoned factory in my town. That would be an investigative video. You go there, you check out the factory, maybe you research the backstory of it, how it ended up that way. And you'd have something that's pretty close to the film side of things on the originality spectrum. And again, this can be topics which are very accessible. It's like Chernobyl, good example. Maybe not the best example actually, but Chernobyl is like, okay, everyone's heard about it, everyone knows about it, but if you made a video going there, filming there, then it's more compelling than if you're just talking about it. So
Would Tom Scott fall into that kind of category?
Tom Scott, I'm not sure if I'm aware of him. What kind of videos does he do?
You guys, he takes like a topic, say like it's look like Lighthouse is like popular for some whatever reason. He goes on location, does like an interview with the people like who operate there. He just did like video on like Lego beaches. He's like a popular YouTuber in like
Oh, Scott's
US.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
He's
sounds
really
like a
creative.
fit. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, anything where you're just going out and interacting with things face to face is going to be great for that as well. But you don't have to. You can also, like, internet culture is a great kind of, that's why I've done a lot of videos on internet culture, because I don't actually have to physically go to, Zoom headquarters or whatever to ask students how Zoom classes have been, for example. So things like that. It doesn't always have to be in person, but it certainly is useful if it is. So yeah, those are two ways to get more original stuff. And there's a lot here. I don't even like, a lot of this is pretty disjointed. Because I think I'm actually better at, I'm good at like ideas. I'm not always the best at organization, if I'm going to be honest, but you have to know what your strengths and weak points are in order to succeed in anything, obviously. But especially for YouTube, it's like, if you're not someone who's super creative, that's fine. You could still actually be very successful on YouTube. You just have to find a formula, some combination. You have to decide where you're going to be on that spectrum of very accessible and very original. And then you have to find a formula that works. And then if you're really trying to make it a career, you have to think, how long-term is that? That's where the replaceability thing comes in. Like, there's this guy named Bo Blacks, who his entire channel is reading tweets. He just reads tweets, Twitter conversation. So it's like Ariana Grande versus somebody on Twitter. It's like a Twitter drama. He'll read out all the tweets, which is convenient. It's providing a service for people, but it's also replaceable. Same thing with the Reddit top five Reddit posts on this subreddit of all time. Okay, those videos can do well. You'll get views because it's interesting. It's presentable. You're lowering the work needed. People don't like reading. They like listening, right? But the problem is you're also replaceable. In fact, an automated robot voice can do that video for you. So I would be cautious about investing. If you want to just get views, that's fine. But if you're trying to actually make something sustainable out of it, you don't want to be super far down this side of the spectrum. You want to be, somewhere here. But you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And I hope that's is that a good? You guys, are we all on the same page here?
Is there an easy way to kind of identify what those strengths and weaknesses are, or is it just personality based?
Yeah, it's personal. I mean, you have to know yourself, right? You just have to know yourself. Like, if you're good at, like, what are you good at? What do you think your strengths are? Or what do you think your weaknesses are? Effing guy.
I don't know. I play a lot of video games. I strength train, do IT work.
Okay.
I guess computers would be a good strength.
Computers. Are you good at math?
Yeah.
Are you good at English?
Well, I speak it.
Okay. Are you good at okay, well, if I were to I don't know you super well, but if I were to
Sure.
I think there's like, again, this kind of comes back to knowing yourself or whatever, but there's almost a spectrum of, some people are really good at practical things. Like, maybe they're good with numbers. They're good with solving equations, good at like problem solving skills, I guess. And there's other people who are good at like I don't even know how you'd classify it. Like, I kind of want to say creative thinking, even though these two things can mix, obviously, but it's like people who are just good at coming up with something that's outside of the norm, something that's outside of that system of, even instead of they see a problem, they're not going to be like, okay, let's work through it. They're going to be like, okay, well, what is even the context of this problem? Is this even a problem? Whatever, that kind of thing. But where was I going with that? So like, someone, usually I find that the people who are more practical, skill based are better at things that I wish I was better at. For example, this is completely unrelated. Everything I'm talking about here is related to the content, right? That's what we're talking about. But aside from the content, there's actually way more things that matter, which is what I'm lacking, I think. You need organization, work ethic, schedule, planning. You need to be good at planning things. You probably need to be good at networking as well, where you're kind of rubbing shoulders with people who are in the industry and who can help you out, managers, whatever, behind the scenes people. There's so many other skills that go into it. And a lot of them have to, like, if you're someone who's good at working hard, you're someone who's good at organizing things, you can totally run a successful channel pretty easily once you find the kind of content that works for you. Once you find an audience and the kind of ways you're willing to present those topics and find what works. You also have to do a lot of self-experimentation anyways, because no matter what, you're almost never going to succeed the first time, but you'll find out what works if you're dedicated. There's also technical skills, which again is more practical based. So editing, filming, audio, everything that goes into making the presentation is basically going to require some level of technical expertise on some level. Also artistic expertise, but more so technical. People don't really care. I could have the coolest visuals ever for a video that are completely original, but if the sound isn't clear, nobody gives a fuck, right? So things like that. Yeah, is there any other questions?
Would you not say that like channels that are just starting out would have to, I don't want to say like be tacky, but like do really tacky thumbnails and stuff, even if the content's good? But say if, like, as you said, say if someone makes a really epic video about, I don't know, a trending topic, but their thumbnail, it's really good, but since they're nobody, no one cares. You know, I feel like to start out, you have to get people to buy into you. So you do have to talk about subjects that, you know, you care about enough, but, you know,
It's not like your main focus.
Yeah, you want to get people into your personality, and then hopefully when you have people following you for you, and you can, you know, go away from the topics that you were sort of...
Right. So that is another, that is something that's more so based on like planning or, I would say planning, more like the direction you want to go. So there's a few different strategies for that. Some people, again, they'll make what's accessible, what's popular, and they'll just stick with that. They'll never worry about, I don't care about presenting myself or the topics I'm into. I'm just going to do what does well. So that's one mentality, and you could do that. But again, in terms of long-term planning, like personally, I don't want to make videos on shit I don't care about, and I don't want to do things that bore me. I want to do things that are kind of interesting, stimulating. Hey, maybe this is even like going to be important or something, you know, maybe that's a little self-righteous, but you know what I mean? Like something that's more on the filmmaking, thought-provoking side of things versus just entertainment or accessible. But you can, something I've done and a lot of other channels do is you start out with things that are more accessible, but as you're saying, you over time will implement things that are original into these videos. So you can make a video about, you can make a video about a popular person that has nothing to do with you, but if you put enough of your own jokes, your own, and that's where those skills come in, humor or creative thinking, whatever, anything that can be used to present it in an original way is going to be based on your personality. And that is going to help to bring people coming back to you for you rather than just for your topics. So the more dry you present something, generally speaking, the less people are going to be interested in you. But the more animated you are, the more stylistic you are. And that's something that's really hard to pin down. But when channels do it well, you instantly know. Like, great example, Internet Historian. Everyone knows Internet Historian because he has his own brand of humor. He has his own like image. He has an aesthetic. He has the the old I don't even know the guy's name, Harold or whatever, the old guy meme.
The meme guy, yeah.
The meme guy. So that's branding. That's also marketing, really. That's marketing within your content.
Hide the pain, Harold.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nerd City. He does the lighting. He does the whole like doctor guy, whatever. Justin Wang, like he does lighting. He has like he's kind of like a heavy metal aesthetic or whatever. So that's branding. That's marketing. That's inserting your originality into content that might have nothing to do with that at all, but it's an aesthetic. And that's good. That's valuable. It's good to do that.
Would you not say that's you could try that, but it comes across like too gimmicky? Like you put like a filter on your videos, you're like, oh, this will be my thing, but it just comes off as like
exactly. Well, you have to make it.
Yeah, you have to do it right. Like, you have to do it tastefully.
You have to do it tastefully, and I find that whether or not it's tasteful is based on how genuine it is. If just do things that you're into, and you can find an aesthetic around that. If you're into, like let's say you're into punk aesthetic, right? Whatever that it means for you, leather jackets. You're into fucking the Ramones and like the Pixies or whatever. Then you're gonna have like vinyl records of the Ramones, the Pixies. You're gonna have outfits that match what you're into. You don't have to be over the top with it, but it's a matter of what are you into. Like, okay, I kind of like Pokemon or games or whatever. So on some small level, this little canvas right here is representative of that. And obviously the kind of tacky version, in my opinion, or it's not tacky, I think some people like it's the trope where it's the gamer YouTuber and their whole background is just shelves of games and posters and shit.
Yeah.
Or the filmmaking YouTuber or something similar. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it ends up being you're being a little bit too general for your own good, in the sense that it's unless
you're just stereotyping yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You're stereotyping yourself as, hey, I'm the film guy. Hey, I'm the gamer guy, which is fine. You're just falling more so into a mold. I mean, that sounds too negative, but you're falling into an archetype more so than having original branding, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. Because I'm like, yeah.
Right, yeah. And this is something I'm still learning, like, and struggling with. And it's also a matter of you have to make some compromises, because on some level, like if I were to just live my normal life, right, which is kind of how I do my videos, I don't have some crazy aesthetic. I don't have LED lights. I don't care about any of that shit, right? But like you have to think about if I'm presenting the video, well, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be completely genuine all the time and be like, well, this is just how I am. It's going to be like playing it up a little bit for the audience too, right? Yeah. So it's a balance there as well. Yeah. Well, I think that if there's any more questions, I'm willing to answer, but I don't know.
Can I use the bathroom?
Yes, you can use the bathroom only after you've signed up to our referral program and use the code Glink for 10% off of all Zoom classes. No, you can go. It's fine. I mean, I think I'm pretty much.
Oh, he's actually going.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's being.
Must have been hold that in for ages. That's what you said no.
Yeah.
Honestly, I might just upload this on my second channel or something as its own thing. I don't know if there's going to be clips that I'll use in the main video. Maybe.
Not the best.
Well, did you get what you were looking for, or just were you hoping for us to be a bit more rowdy or something?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to actually seriously present anything, and I obviously didn't really prepare anything. So I was.
Yeah, it was good.
It was pretty good.
We enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I can back that. Pretty good.
Fucking
Good
around
stuff.
in the background, driving in the background. So it was surprising that it held my.
I thought you prepared. I thought you were reading off notes at one point. I was like, this guy's done his homework.
Yeah. No. Okay. I'm glad. I hope you guys
I think
learned
this is like the
something.
most I've paid attention to like a class like thing in a while.
Awesome.
I actually took notes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem is that I'm going to presume we're all in or out of college, and you
I'm
probably
about.
take
I'm
the thing.
graduating high school.
I
And full-time work.
Well, I suppose I'm in A levels currently, so that would be. I'm 17.
You're 17,
damn.
dude. I thought you were like 28. What the flip?
No, no.
Are
I'm
any of you
17.
interested in making videos at any point, or is that something you guys have thought about ever?
Well,
I make videos on the side.
I've done it before in the back, like in the back. Oh my god, in the younger days, but not as much like recently.
I do
I did
have
a
a
couple-
YouTube channel and I am trying it, but I'm learning. Do you know what I mean? Like I did have a wee gimmick where I was like, I'll do a VHS filter because I do like vaporwave sort of stuff, but it just, I then done it properly and tried to actually use a decent camera. I thought it looked better, but I wanted to try and make it. Oh, you come onto my channel and you think, oh, straight away, it's me. But then I think a lot of people are like, what the fuck's this guy doing? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I could say all this stuff, but implementing it is obviously a lot harder. Like as I'm saying all these things, I'll fully admit there's parts of this I'm very weak in. So it's just it's tough. Yeah.
I made a couple back in the day, and I'm just always very impressed by like quality that some people are able to put out. Because the most I did was just I played a couple games, clipped a couple clips, and then added some weak transitions to it. But the amount of effort it takes to make something like truly meaningful is just crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of really impressive quality. But again, like I think it's easy to get carried away with quality where it is good and it is important to strive for it, but you definitely don't need super high quality stuff to do well. You really just need something that's interesting. And like a good example is Frederick. I should have talked about this in the presentation, but it's really another topic entirely. The value of storytelling, which is really what any good video is. Like there's a few examples. Frederick Knudsen, you guys probably heard of him. Down the Rabbit Hole, that guy's channel.
Oh yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Quality channel.
Oki's Weird Stories, who I know, like I know him pretty well. Those kinds of channels, they'll have very minimal editing. It's just like pictures slowly zoom. Like you guys could do the editing, no problem, easily. But what they're good at is they're just really good at writing. They're good at which is a different skill entirely. But like if you're able to be a good writer, you keep people interested based on the words you're saying the whole way through, even if it's an hour long, So that's the power of good writing. Good writing carries those kinds of storytelling videos, basically.
I think they're like most things. I know it's so cheesy to say, like, but if you are passionate about something, like, I think it will show. Like music, for example, if someone's just made a song because this is popular at the minute, you can tell it's crap, but someone who's just put their heart and soul into it, even if it's not your genre, you can appreciate it. So I think YouTube's sort of like that. You can tell people who are just making videos because they'll get views, or you can tell people they actually care. Like, so.
Exactly. Yeah. It'll come across whether you know what you're talking about or not. That's the other thing. And that's the thing about the news channels not the news channels, but just when the people who are making topics that they don't actually care about, the flaw is, number one, they're less into it, so they're less likely to keep going. And number two is people can tell when you're really passionate about something, and that comes across, and that affects how the overall video is.
Yeah.
I think if I were to get into YouTube, it'd probably just be like as a hobby, or like just like shit I like. Probably not consistent uploads.
Yeah, and that's a good way I would actually say that starting out that way, no matter what, is pretty much ideal. It's generally not a good idea to start off YouTube with the mentality of, oh, I need to make this a career or a job. I mean, that's just
put up content by like a certain time, or else I'm not a good YouTuber.
Right. Yeah.
It pops off. Otherwise, just whatever I like.
Yeah.
You could just be like everyone else and upload Among Us content every day. Well, back then when that was popping.
Is that still popular? The Among Us stuff?
I think it came back for like maybe a week when the new map came out, but other than that, I think it's been kind of like dead. Not, you know.
It's
I never
popular
actually
as
played
like
it, to be
a
honest.
ironic meme, but
Yeah.
Like I know some friends who are like two friends that are like they have like a joint YouTube channel and they just like post them playing like Newgrounds games and shit. And like I'll admit it's like funny, but like you know, I don't know where I was going with that.
yeah, they're probably just doing it for
Yeah, they're like
their
I
own
mean,
enjoyment, right?
I know they're having fun with it. Like I like record with them sometimes. Like if I just like pop in and call, I think I was doing like a Walking Dead video with them, and we were just like cracking jokes, and that was it.
Yeah, that's yeah, I mean there's even more I could get into because there's also like when you really get to the point, like at a certain point there becomes all of what I'm saying is kind of starting from scratch, but when you build on any one of these things or multiple of these things and you really build an audience, you can leverage that in so many ways. Like for example, Game Grumps or whatever, things like that, where they're already established, right? People already like them, they already watch them. And so when you reach a certain threshold, you can do low effort relatively content that people will watch because they're into your personality, you know?
For me, I've been I write video scripts. I have no idea how to edit, and I don't really bother actually making the videos. I just write the video scripts, and I use it as like a means to practice my English literature. So I just write, and that's how I've been practicing, because it's a good means to kind of do an analytical essay, but not feel like one. If you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And also, I just help friends with working on stuff like that because I've got a lot of friends who are studying film, and so I help, stuff like that.
Right. So you write scripts.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are they meant to be YouTube videos, or are they meant to be films, or what are they meant to be?
YouTube videos, etc.
So you're asking what to do with that, basically?
Yeah, basically.
Well, I would. It depends a little bit on the topic, but if it's like, give me an example of one of the topics, or one of the.
So, yeah. Oh God. Well, I was writing on. I saw like a video on like the parasocial relationship. I think you covered something similar to this with like Twitch.
Yeah.
And like stuff like that. So I was writing on that, kind of my spin on that. And lately it's more like, I'm not sure if you're familiar who Chris Chan is, but
yeah, of course, yeah.
Someone.
Oh boy,
Everyone knows him.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm glad. There's like a couple lolcows that I've been just writing like scripts on, kind of like archiving and just writing what has been going on through, I suppose, this community and how it's affected the community, how people look at them, stuff like that.
Well, I'll say it this way. Here's what I would do if I was you and you're curious to see how they would perform. I would turn one of them into a video with low effort editing just to get the script, almost just to see how you present it, because whether or not you could get away with minimal editing is completely dependent on how good your writing is, and I guess your narration too, but generally the writing is the most important. So in other words, like if you have kind of mediocre writing but you're really good at presenting, that's helpful, or you're really good at referencing outside things, like again bringing different ideas. But I would just try it once and see because that'll give you an idea of what your strengths are in terms of, I know you're saying you're not good at editing, but you could find that you would become good at it, or you could just find that your narration is so good that you don't even need to be.
Okay.
Personally, Glink, do you just do all of your writing and then do you narrate all of it and then put visuals to it, or is it visuals and then narration?
Ooh.
It's pretty much it's kind of both, because like in this, like for this video, for example, there's like certain visuals where, oh, I know I want to include that. Like, well, there's two ways, because one of them is it's both. It's really both, but generally speaking, you have some idea. If you have a vision of what you want your video to be, you have some idea of what the visuals are going to be like, and I'll write them down. Like, oh, I'm going to have my aesthetic for this video is going to be the Mad Mod episode of Teen Titans. So I'll include clips of that, and then I'll do edits of that. And then, oh, I want to include clips from this. I want to include things from this, whether it's a song or a visual. But then when you're actually editing, of course, you also just add things on the fly that fit with what you're saying. Usually it's just visuals. Like, so it's both. Yeah. I mean, you plan it out, but you also, I write, well, I don't know. This video is weird because when it's all interviews, or mostly, I have so many interviews in this video, and they're really helping to chug the story along, and I'm just kind of piecing everything together. So the writing is not like the last video I made. It was so heavy on the writing where all I'm doing is writing for the most of the video, and I'm planning every little minute detail out. That is like the other extreme, but this one is way more on the fly. I don't even have the whole script written yet, but I'm like already like 15 minutes of the video is edited because it's just based on the arrangement of the clips and how they go together, if that makes sense.
I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, it just depends on the kind of video you're doing. But generally you're always gonna plan some level of it out, 100%. All right, guys, this has been fun. I should get back to work and also just doing what I need to do today. Thank you guys for showing up, though. This has been awesome. Like I said, I think what I might do is just upload this. If you guys are cool with it, I might just upload this as a separate even thing. Maybe it might be interesting.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, dude, go for it.